Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us here at the Reusable Packaging Learning Center. Excited to bring this panel together where we can convene a lot of our industry experts to talk about industry topics that are important, that are changing the way that our industry is operating, and in this case, changing the way in which businesses are approaching, from a strategic standpoint, the management of materials and products. My name is Tim Debus with the Reusable Packaging Association, and we're going to talk about the circular economy today and how reusable packaging not only fits in the circular economy but excels with a circular economy. In short, the circular economy is an economic model that serves to achieve growth decoupled with consumption of materials. So can we have economic growth without having to use the mass consumption of materials to achieve that growth? It looks to separate that. There are really three principles for a circular economy in looking at your economic model. The first is to design waste out of your system, out of your business. The second is to extend the useful life and value of your materials and products to their highest value possible, so you're constantly keeping them in their continuous purpose. And the third principle is that you're restoring or regenerating biological ecosystems. So taking those three principles and how reusable packaging fits within that system is what we're going to talk today with our distinguished panels who are involved in companies that supply reusable packaging products and provide services to their customers in many ways to achieve the circular economy with any particular business model. I'd like for them to introduce themselves and to talk a little briefly about how their particular products and what kind of products they have and how they're used in certain marketplaces, and then we'll get into some questions associated with the depth of reuse in the circular economy. So would you like to begin, Holly?
Sure, my name is Holly Maher. I'm the Director of Emerging Markets for RIG Pacific, and when we say emerging, we don't mean like sort of third world, we mean emerging like new and growing. And so we manufacture a lot of different types of reusable packaging. We are in 11 different verticals, everywhere from beverage to environmental to retail, perishables. We do everything from pallets to trays to RPCs to large rollout carts, and I'm excited to be here.
Okay, I'm Jean-Marc van Maren. I'm the Chief Product Officer for the Kapka Group. The Kapka Group is a German company, and our headquarters is in Berlin, and we have one production facility in the US in St. Louis. We claim to be the largest producer of plastic pallets made out of recycled plastics in the world. We have a capacity of about 10 million pallets. We focus specifically on pallets, and our key benefit that we bring to the table is that we use post-consumer recycled material. In Europe, we take the post-consumer recycled waste, we upgrade it, we engineer it to a material that we can use for the production of pallets. And we try to do that in the US as well with major brand owners and major retailers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks for having us today. I'm Ben Waterman, Business Development Manager for Monoflow International. We're headquartered in Winchester, Virginia, with operating facilities in Ottawa, Kansas, and Guanajuato, Mexico. We are involved in the reusable packaging market, primarily with distribution containers, food containers, and automotive containers, as well as system integration containers and trays. We began a journey with reusable packaging about 30-some years ago, and every day we're continuing to look and analyze our system and our customer systems to try to drive out waste and improve performance and gain an economic advantage in the marketplace.
Thank you. And Ben, just to carry on, driving out waste is that first principle of designing systems, designing business models that's going to eliminate waste within that system. We're talking about solid waste. We're talking about food waste, creating efficiencies where there's waste in labor and other processes. That's what reusable packaging brings. It's the idea of a system in which that product is continuously being utilized and delivering the highest performance and the highest value within a system. So looking at that first principle of designing out waste, as you work with your customers and you're approaching them into adopting and engaging with a reusable packaging system, are there any commercial examples that you have or incidents that you can reference here in which they were able to achieve a significant waste reduction going from, say, a single-use product portfolio of packaging to a reusable model? Maybe share an example within your own business where that took place as demonstrating how reusable packaging does indeed design out waste in that system.
All right. One of the key things that we do when we develop a new product and develop a solution for somebody is we take what may potentially currently be available and we take that product oftentimes from a competitor and we try to drive out waste. And we did that with our bulk container for the automotive industry, where we were able to eliminate over 20 pounds of material on the front side of that product's life before it even entered the supply chain. So we're able to drive out waste on the front side. And then when you take a look at the consumables that are out there, we take a look at certain programs and we're able to eliminate that waste by offering a plastic reusable and sustainable solution, taking a corrugated product that's thrown away after one use and introducing, in this case, was a wine tote, where we completely got rid of cardboard and we replaced it with a plastic reusable container that is probably 7-8 years in running now in its life cycle.
Any other examples or thoughts in the marketplace?
Unfortunately, I only have examples of pellets, but I think one of the very well-known example that we handle is a beverage pellet in Europe, where we transfer a wooden pellet into a reusable plastic pellet. And the key of this is that you try to use a pellet that has a very low damage rate per trip. So per trip, you generate much more efficiency and lower CO2 footprint than when you would use a traditional wood pellet. And this pellet is now in use for many years with companies like Coca-Cola, Heineken, Pepsi, AB InBev, and all the beverage companies that you can imagine.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have some similar. I mean, almost all of our customers have converted to reusable packaging because a single-use packaging is part of their waste stream. So beverage is a great example. We've gotten rid of a lot of single-use corrugate with shrink wrap, converting it to plastic shells. We've converted produce from single-use wax corrugate to reusable RPCs. You could name the industry, and we've helped convert it from a single-use or a one-way packaging to something that's reusable. One of the cool new things we're working on that's really exciting specifically about driving out waste is working on a new system for customers who are using or building pallet loads of product and wanting to eliminate stretch wrap altogether. And it's some creative means of designing pallets and or the totes or packages that go on top of it that interlock significantly to each other that helps eliminate that stretch wrap altogether. So it's some of the really cool new exciting projects we're working on.
Yeah, thanks, Holly. That's a good example that we're not just talking about using reusable packaging to eliminate a single-use packaging waste. There's a lot of tertiary packaging in terms of how pallets are shipped within a distribution center, that having reusable systems that interlock and have built strong unit loads can also eliminate that level of solid waste within a supply chain.
And actually, that's actually what you see happening the last couple of years. You see that people are rethinking the supply chain. They're rethinking of how to package goods and eliminate some kind of packaging. For instance, corrugated packaging, using boxes to make direct steps and reuse that packaging. And that's now happening in such a frequent ratio that you will see more of these applications coming.
Well, the circular economy allows us to make distinctions as well between reuse activities and recycling activities. I find we still got a lot of work to do to be able to draw distinctions between the two. Reuse is waste prevention. It's taking the material and continuing its life, continuing its useful properties within a system approach of reuse. Recycling is really an efficient way of managing waste that no longer has a use, but we're trying to recapture that natural material, the raw material, into reproduction and reuse. In the circular economy, reuse is actually the preferred inner loop activity. That's the quickest way to be able to generate the products in use and drive efficiencies within supply chains. Recycling is often considered a last resort because your product is used, it's done, it's finished. Now we're taking the recycling material and looking to remanufacture. But recycling plays an important role. It's a critical function even in the reusable packaging industry. A lot of reusable packaging is based on recycled materials. In many ways, converting to a reusable packaging system, you're allowed to create demand for recycling content. You're allowed to use recycling materials and put them into an extended use with reusable packaging. So when we look at our products that you produce every day for a variety of different customers, it's produced with, in many cases, it's plastic, could be all other types of materials. But tell me your approach as a company in terms of using recycled content. Is there room to grow for reusable products to pull recycling content and allow for that market to be driven where you have that more seamless circularity between reuse and recycling together? Give me a sense as to how your products are manufactured for and with recycled purpose.
I would like to say something. Plastics, we're all plastic manufacturers, is a great product, and it's actually very good to make packaging lightweight and reusable. But when you look at, let's say, an LCA analysis of replacing packaging with plastics, virgin plastics is not such a good, doesn't have such a good score. Recycled plastics has a good score. So it's really, the recycled plastics is today a problem, but it's also an opportunity to use these plastics in these applications. And I think that's a major driver, not only making the packaging lighter and reusable, but also making much more out of recycled content. Closing loops with beverage crates or other crates or big boxes, that's all generating a lot of CO2 savings.
Yeah, we almost all of our products are manufactured with recycled materials. I think as an industry, we do a really great job of capturing our own, or I'm happy to take your broken parts too and recycle them and use that product. But we're really great at using that material, but we also use post-consumer materials, we use post-industrial materials. And I'm really, really excited to say Reg Pacific has just announced a new initiative whereby we have our own circular economy initiative internally, and we started manufacturing products out of ocean plastic. It's been a really, really cool experience. It's brand new. We've made some carts out of it. We made some pallets out of it. We just recently made some RPCs out of it. And it's really, really exciting for us. It's so far, we're at a stage where they have different physical properties than a virgin material or even like a post-consumer or post-industrial material product. But we think there's probably room out there in the marketplace for us to be able to go to our customers and say, hey, this is an offering made out of ocean plastic. It's part of the problem. Now we're part of the solution. You want to join together and make this a part of the solution.
It's very exciting to hear that. Thank you for sharing that. One of the projects that sticks out in my mind is we had a customer who was facing the dilemma, and they were moving to the next generation of a plastic container. And we're wondering, what are we going to do with the old container? And in we stepped, and we were able to take and replace these almost on a one-to-one basis, where we took their current older container, still had a useful life out of it, but they wanted to upgrade the product, recycled it completely, 100% recycling, and replaced those containers with brand new containers on a one-to-one basis. And that was a really neat project to work on, where we solved the dilemma of where are these things going to end up at. We turned it into cash value and brand new containers at the same time.
Well, it's terrific to hear some of the examples and initiatives as we as an industry look to see how we can maximize that environmental footprint. It's not only taking our products and making sure they're being recovered for recycling into new products, but also serving as a marketplace for recycled material. And I think there's a lot of advancement on the different types of plastics or other materials that can be used in the recycled part of the manufacture of reusable packaging, whether it's PET, more consumer-based. We've got some work to do as an industry, but at the end we feel that it's a solution of being able to drive recycled material that may not have a home somewhere, but it does with reusable packaging. And as we grow the industry, we can continue to pull some of the recycled material that currently doesn't have a place to go into the reusable packaging marketplace. And it's something that that full system circular, making sure that material constantly is moving and has value, is an important part of reusable packaging.
Yeah, but here I'm a little bit more critical. I think things go much too slow. At the moment, we have a huge problem of recycled material, of application of recycled material. In the US, there are a lot of examples, but the industry has to move faster, and we're relatively small companies. I think brand owners and large retailers have to take a leading role to accelerate this usage of recycled plastics in their applications. Because if they don't speed this up, this crisis is going to increase tremendously over the next couple of years. In Europe, there is already a kind of a system in place which funds all these developments, and this is also required in the US, that there is not only an industry that's making steps, but there's more economical, governmental push for change.
Well, the important thing with the circular economy and also with reusable systems is getting products back. They're not reusable if you never get it back to reuse it. So a lot of the focus on the reusable packaging system is on the operations and logistics of having systems in place where there's full dedication of recovery of these assets so that they can be put effectively for reuse. And to do so, that's going to help save money within the total supply chain. You work with users and brand owners of reusable packaging products, and it's an ongoing effort of having the infrastructure and really a lot of the management commitment to making sure it's a priority for materials, that it's not just packaging. These are valued assets that continue to serve a purpose and can actually drive performance when they're done, used properly, and of course used over again in a recovered reuse environment. Do you have any thoughts or examples commercially in terms of how your products are in systems that recovery is maybe a challenge or has some areas of improvement? And that's really where we can close the loop, if you will, allowing these products to always have a continuous flow in use. What are some of your thoughts as far as the closing of the loop and the logistics of making sure that they're getting returned?
I think one of the first things that we do is we attempt to educate both internally but to our customers and potential customers that that asset is truly an asset and there is value on it. And so it's an education process on the very front side that that is not a product that is just to be discarded or thrown away and end up in a landfill. There's a cash value that's associated with it. And so that's one of the first things we do is we work with just educating the customer that that's a truly a unique product, it has value, and it needs to come back and needs to be treated accordingly.
So education obviously becomes a very critical part, but it's also the collaboration within the system. It's not just one supplier to a user. There has to be all these managed components, but with technology, it's probably allowing us to be better at how communications and the managing and handling of those materials are performing.
We've been very fortunate in that we've been able to utilize RFID technology, and we're trying to attempt, as all of us are, to leverage the latest technologies to be able to track that asset. So once the customer realizes there's value associated with it through education, then we can track it with the latest technology such as RFID tagging, and then we can make sure that we can get those assets back.
As governments are passing regulatory initiatives or even legislation is being passed around the circular economy, customers, big retailers, distribution supply chains are adopting more circular economy practices. Are we seeing improvement in terms of how these companies are looking at full systems management of these materials?
Yeah, actually I want to make another comment on that. Regulatory incentives need also to be encouraged much more. One thing that's a problem for using reusable plastic pellets in the retail chain is so-called insurance requirements regarding flame or fire behavior, factory mutual. And this requires that certain types of pellets have to be equipped with flame retardants. Putting flame retardants into pellets is not doing the CO2 a lot of benefit for that type of material. So I would strongly recommend that regulatory requirements are loosened up to use the recycled material in these applications. Flame retardants, additives, everything that's not is not bringing a benefit but creating more environmental weight is a waste of materials.
Yes, as far as management goes, a management of a reusable system, we find that the people that do it best have a system, right? So almost all of our products have some form of tech on it, RFID, barcode. We've experimented with some other things like BLE. And the greatest thing about putting that on your reusable packaging is it gives you insight into your supply chain, right? It's not just tracking your asset, right? But it gives you insight. How much is this moving? How far? How am I getting it back? What are the turns? What is the usage? But the people that do it best, they have a system, right? They've got a system solely dedicated for reverse logistics. They sort it, they track it, they report it, they measure it, right? Those are the people that have the most success in managing these reusable assets.
Well, that's great because we're going to talk about the added benefits that you can get and extract from your reuse system. It's important to point out that the circular economy is an economic model. It's not a sustainability model. And so when you approach circular economy, don't think of it as, oh, recycling, reuse, we're going to lower our carbon footprint, we're going to eliminate solid waste. Those are actually environmental benefits associated with an economic model that's driven on bringing efficiencies, designing out waste from cost-saving opportunities within a system. So when you're looking at the economic benefits associated with reusable packaging, we mentioned a few here. Technology is one area that's going to help us layer to drive data and allow data to be used throughout a supply chain. But even benefits in terms of strong pallets and unit loads and filling up trailers with nice, strong, durable pallets lowers cost of transportation and improves worker health and safety. Give me a sense from your products and your experience with customers where there's been added benefits with reusable packaging associated with cost savings and efficiencies that are eliminating financial waste, let's say, within a system. Any examples that you may have with a customer from an economic benefit standpoint?
Go ahead.
I mean, again, in Europe, we take waste material that is generated, either packaging waste, film, hard plastics, whatever, which is a cost for them to get rid of. We take that, we convert that into pallets. But we also, by doing that, they don't create other waste. They don't create waste of corrugated, they don't create waste of wood pellets. The end of life of reusable plastic systems is economical, a no-brainer.
Yeah, I would say so. Berg Pacific is 104 years old. How old are we? So up until this point, we really haven't talked about circular economies, and so all of our customers have converted solely for economic reasons, right? So it's exciting that we're talking about this now, but up until now, everyone has converted because it provides them or eliminates waste or handling. And so the best example that I can give is we make an egg RPC that brings eggs from the producer through the distribution center all the way to the store shelf, and then you can merchandise it right from the egg RPC. It's reduced shrink by 50%. It eliminates handling at the stores. The savings for our retail customers are in the millions of dollars. If I could tell, if there's any retailers in here, they should be in an egg RPC. There's absolutely, hands down, one of the best solutions that's out there.
I'd have to piggytail then on all this, or piggyback on all this, where we've seen a decline in customers' product that gets damaged during transit, so there's that economic benefit. And then I just learned of one the other day. It was very interesting. All of our localities are suffering from landfills that are becoming overfilled. And it's truly a concern as we move into the future. And there was actually some economic advantage given to a potential new warehousing group that's going into the I-81 corridor, where I've learned that they will not be introducing consumables into the landfill because they've switched over to plastic reusable containers, and thus they're getting a tax advantage because they will not be negatively impacting the infrastructure that's already in existence in this smaller community. So it's kind of just a win-win economically and then environmentally as well.
Yeah, what it really reflects is a design transition from disposability to durability. And when you're designing for durability of something that can last, you actually are incentivized to add feature-rich content. Having something durable, you can add so many other value-added properties to it in terms of its performance. In a single use, you're really worried about lowest cost of good, lightest weight material. With the reusable packaging, the idea is to build something that's going to last and provide extended value and benefit. When you have that design goal and can go from disposability to durability, that's when you can start capitalizing on a lot of the economic benefits of performance through the supply chain. And that's really a big distinction that's starting to get picked out now in terms of the circular economy is, wait a minute, I can actually design something now that will last, and therefore I can include all these different features. And you're seeing this with consumer products now. There's a lot of interest in consumer products that are so well built, so well designed that you actually want to put your detergents and your cleaning in this beautiful package up on your counter instead of under the counter in your kitchen, let's say. Because you can design to have performance and shape things that really have beautiful properties to it. But we see that in pallets and containers and bins as far as designing things that have a lot of great attributes to it that help with the circular economy because you're extending value, economic, and customer satisfaction all the way through the supply chain.
Actually, I think we all three are designing for recycling. I think we are specialists in this.
Yep.
We all make products that are made for recycling, correct?
Well, at this time, I'd like to see if you have any questions to the audience, any particular topics you want to bring up, maybe perspectives about the circular economy that we can comment on. Any other thoughts or questions out there?
Kevin.
Can we get a
Kevin needs a microphone
here? That'd be great. We've got 3 of them here. We can.
Thanks very much. I happen to agree with everything that you've all said, and I'm a full believer in the circular economy. My question's a bit tangential in that IKEA, which is a company that's been reducing packaging, et cetera, for a long time, they appear to have gone more towards a linear economy in their packaging, especially with their pallets, where they've gone to a corrugate. And it just kind of makes me struggle. Maybe you can help me out, because I agree with everything you said about durability and how it's good for the environment, but why would IKEA, who's been seen to be a leader in sustainability, go more towards a linear economy?
I know something about IKEA because they presented 4 years ago that they would change all their materials into polypropylene, one single material, and they needed on an annual basis about 400,000 tons of recycled polypropylene. So that was their spot on the horizon to move forward. And then the packaging, I think they standardize as much as possible, and they try to make it as light as possible. And corrugated is in some cases very light. So that's their driver, I think.
Yeah, I remember that when they first moved, and I thought it was really interesting, especially as a reusable plastics manufacturer, that they would make that move. I still think it's interesting. A lot of their product is moving one way far distance, so the use of reusables all the way back to start of manufacture can get expensive unless you're designing it for long distance reuse. I also think maybe they weren't thinking about end of life. A lot of times people think about recyclability, especially corrugate, as a massive benefit, but it's hard on the earth. The repulping process is very hard on the earth, on the planet, as far as corrugate goes, and now places that we used to send it don't take it anymore. So it might be a great time to call up IKEA and ask them some new questions.
Well, from a circular economy perspective, it's setting a bar that is environmentally friendly. The idea is that you can use them multiple times and recycle them. But it really is that outer loop, outer area, that when all else fails in terms of reuse, refurbishment, repair, then you go to recycling. It's setting the bar pretty low from the circular economy objective, and you're losing out on a lot of other performance benefits. It may be environmentally sustainable in terms of having a recycled material, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee that all that is going to be recycled and have a useful home. And that's where, if you really look at reuse as that pinnacle of activity in managing materials sustainably in a circular economy, having a bar that's focused more on minimal reuse, more on recycling, is truly lower on the technical cycle of the circular economy.